You're listening to Paradox Eclipse Theory, and this is Escaping Cryopods. Was abandonment the only way? A ship adrift in the void, centuries of silence, until some of us wake. In the corridors of frozen bodies and broken pods, something survives, something that shouldn't. When humanity abandoned its own, the horror that emerged knows only hunger. If you're ready to descend into this drifting nightmare, smash that like button, subscribe, and share this video with fellow sci-fi horror fans. Drop a comment below. Your support keeps these stories alive and brings more nightmares from the void. Now sit back, dim the lights, and let's begin. I woke to a sound I wasn't supposed to hear. Silence. Not the calm kind. This was the hollow, endless silence of a ship that had been dead far too long. The cryogel on my face had already hardened, cracking as I breathed. My eyelids felt like they were glued shut. The pod's interior lights flickered above me, stuttering like they were struggling to remember how to shine. Cold punched through my chest first, then through my spine. I tried to speak. Nothing came out except a dry rasp. The lid of the pod jerked open halfway, then jammed. My hands pushed uselessly against the frozen seam. When it finally gave way, it scraped along its rails with a sound like metal screaming. I sat up fast and instantly wished I hadn't. Rows of cryopods surrounded me. Some were cracked. Some were shattered. Some held shapes that never finished waking, frozen in twisted silhouettes. Others had their lids fogged from the inside, like someone had pounded on the glass until their last breath burned out. And then I saw the worst part. The pods weren't just dead. They were empty. The people weren't there. No bodies. No ice. No dried remains. Just torn harnesses and claw marks across the interiors, as if someone, or something, had dragged their way out centuries ago. A shiver crawled down my neck. Hello. My voice finally scraped out, weak and hoarse. Anyone awake? Something shifted in the dark beyond the far row of pods. A soft, wet sound. I froze. Another sound followed, air being pulled through something that wasn't lungs. Jack! A voice cracked through the gloom to my right. I spun toward it. A woman crawled out from behind a half-collapsed pod, clutching its edge for balance. Her name came back to me slowly. Lynn, maintenance tech. Short hair, shaking hands, eyes wide like she'd seen hell already. She swallowed. I thought I was the only one. I wish you were, I muttered. She gave a breath that was half a laugh, half a sob. What happened to the others? I don't know. I stepped out of my pod, legs numb and unsteady. But they're gone. And something's still in here. Lynn flinched. You heard it too. Yeah. The temperature was wrong. Cryobay air should have been freezing, but the warmth had a sick humidity to it, like old breath. Pipes above us dripped steadily, cryo fluid mixed with something darker. I glanced at a flickering wall console. Its display shifted through corrupted logs, glitching in loops. Lynn rubbed her arms, teeth chattering. Jack, look. She pointed to a cluster of pods near the center of the room. Their lids were warped outward, metal peeled like petals. The harnesses inside weren't just torn, they were melted. And the pods themselves, they were empty too. That's not possible, I whispered. Then explain it. A deep vibration rumbled through the floor. Something moving through the lower decks. Slow, heavy, wet. Lynn pressed a hand to her mouth. It's still alive down there. My throat tightened. The life support system's failing. Everything's corroding. If we stay here, we die, she finished. I nodded. We need power. Comms. Anything. Do you remember why we were in cryo? I can't. I can't remember anything after boarding. Me neither, I said. Just cold. Sleep. And then waking up. A sudden hiss erupted overhead. Ventilation ducts blasted out a cloud of frost, carrying a metallic stench with it. My eyes burned as I stepped back. Lynn coughed violently. Something's in the vents, she choked out. I grabbed her arm. Move. Now. We slipped between the broken pods, the floor crunching under our feet from crystallized cryogel. I kicked away a loose panel and nearly retched. Inside, a human spine lay fused to its wiring, grown into it, like the ship had tried to reshape the body into a part of itself. Lynn recoiled. Jack, what happened to us? I don't know, I said. But this wasn't an accident. The far door to the cryobay was half sealed by emergency lockdown. Lights around it pulsed a faint red. I pulled at the manual release. Nothing. Frozen solid. Lynn knelt beside a fallen medic kit, rummaging desperately. This doesn't make sense. They wouldn't abandon a cryobay. Not unless. The lights cut out. Everything went black. My heartbeat pounded in my ears. Lynn froze too. Neither of us breathed. Then, slowly, the lights flickered back on, but dimmer, like the ship was struggling to stay awake. And that's when I saw it. A smear across the floor. Thick. Dark. Leading toward the HVAC grating near the wall. The metal bars were bent outward, like something had crawled out of them, or dragged something back inside. Lynn backed up until she hit a pod. "Jack, we have to get out." "I know." We found a small gap under the emergency hatch, just enough to squeeze through if we forced it. I shoved my shoulder down, trying to wedge the metal upward. Lynn pressed beside me, hands shaking. "Why did we wake up?" "Why us?" A single log fragment flashed across the panel above the hatch. Cryopop 04 ejected. Population reduction protocols confirmed. Priority survivors, ARC leadership. Low-value civilians discarded. Lynn stared at the text, lips trembling. They left us. They really left us. I swallowed the bitterness clawing up my throat. "Help me push." We forced the hatch upward, metal grinding. Something clattered behind us, metal shifting inside a vent. Lynn whispered, "It's following us." The hatch finally gave way enough for us to crawl through. I slid under first, chest scraping the floor. Cold air hit me from the maintenance corridor on the other side. I reached back, grabbing Lynn's hand. "Come on." As she crawled through, something struck the vent behind her with a deep metallic thud. The grating buckled outward. Lynn screamed, "Jack, go!" I pulled her through just as the vent burst open behind us, and something wet and pale spilled out onto the cryobay floor. Not human. Not anymore. The hatch slammed shut as whatever it was hurled itself at the door, metal shuddering under the impact. Lynn collapsed beside me, sobbing. "Jack, that used to be someone." My hands trembled. "Yeah." The thing slammed the door again. "We need to move," I said, pulling her up. "We're not the only ones who woke up, and we're not the only ones who were abandoned." The corridor outside the cryobay felt even worse than the room we'd crawled out of. The air was thicker here, warmer, like the ship had been breathing in and out for centuries without anyone telling it to stop. Pipes overhead dripped a slow rhythm that echoed down the hallway. Some of the droplets hit the metal floor with a hiss. Lynn wiped her face with trembling fingers. "Jack, how long do you think we were asleep?" I studied the corridor walls. The paint was bubbled, the metal warped, like heat or radiation had chewed on it. Centuries, maybe. Long enough for the ship to rot. Long enough for people to turn into that. Her voice cracked. I didn't answer. I kept moving. The lights flickered every 3 or 4 steps. Not a power issue. Something was interfering with the electrical grid. And each flicker showed brief shadows sliding along the ceiling. Not always in the same place. Not always following normal movement. I tried not to notice. Lynn walked close behind me, almost stepping on my heels. The logs said population reduction. That means leadership had time to plan. They calculated who mattered, I muttered. They decided who had a future. And we weren't on the list. No. A distant metallic thud made us both freeze. Then another. Heavy. Slow. Something moving above us, pacing the length of the ship. Lynn whispered, "Why is it staying near us?" "Maybe we're the warmest thing on the ship," I said. I didn't believe that. I think she didn't either. Whatever was crawling through these halls wasn't hunting heat. It was hunting familiarity. Things made from the same gel, the same pods, the same genetic stew that had leaked for hundreds of years. We reached a junction lit only by a single flickering red strip. A half-broken map of the emergency module hung from the wall. Lynn leaned close. "Where's power control?" "Deck C." I traced the faded lines. Through the maintenance shaft and down 2 levels. She sighed shakily. "I hate shafts." "You'll hate dying more." "That's fair." We turned left. The smell hit first, a mix of rust, rot, and something sweet, like syrup that had spoiled. My throat closed up. I knew what it was before I saw it. Bodies. or pieces of them. They were fused into the walls, grown into the wiring. Faces half-formed, mouths parted, eyes empty. Not fresh, not old. Something between. Some twitching with residual nerve signals the ship kept recycling. Lynn staggered backward. No, Jack, these were the others. I touched one of the twisted faces without meaning to. A shiver crawled across the skin. It felt like touching cold rubber. Lynn whispered, "They didn't die, they were absorbed. Turned into systems," I said, stepping away. "The ship used them, adapted them." She gagged. "Like organic circuits." "Yeah." A weak voice crackled suddenly behind us. Not from a person, through the wall speakers. A glitchy, almost human tone. "Jack, reads, proceed to observation." Lynn backed up. "How does it know your name?" I wish I knew. The lights around the speaker flickered, and another message came through, this time clearer, feminine, soft but broken. "Jack, if you're awake, please follow the voice." Lynn grabbed my arm. "Don't listen." It could be anything mimicking a human. But the voice triggered something in my memory. A warmth. A familiar echo. Not a person I could clearly remember, but someone I used to know, someone important. I shook my head. "We need power first. Then we can figure out who's calling us." We reached the maintenance shaft hatch. It was half-welded shut by corrosion. I pulled at the manual release. It screeched like something dying. Lynn whispered, "Hurry." I pressed my shoulder into the hatch and shoved. Metal groaned, then gave way with a sharp snap. Cold air rushed from the shaft. We started down the ladder. I placed each foot carefully. Lynn followed, her breath shaky behind me. Halfway down, she whispered, "Jack, listen." I stopped. Clink, clink, clink. Something was descending the shaft above us. Not climbing, dropping, landing on each rung with a wet metallic slap. Lynn whispered, "Don't look up. Just move." I moved faster. My hands burned from sliding too quickly on the metal rungs. The thing above moved faster too. Closer, closer. Lynn's voice trembled. "Jack." "I know." We reached the lower level and pushed out of the shaft. I slammed the emergency lever, and the hatch sealed shut just as something hit it from the other side. Hard. The whole hallway shook. Lynn sagged against the wall. "It's not giving up." "No," I said. "It knows we're isolated." "And it wants what?" "To pull us back to the pod? To fuse us into the ship too." I didn't answer. My stomach twisted just imagining it. Deck C looked different from the upper hallway. More intact. Less corrosion. Lights stayed on longer, flickering in a slower rhythm. The power core hummed somewhere deeper in the ship, alive but sick. We walked carefully, listening. My own heartbeat felt loud enough to attract something. Lynn nudged a fallen panel with her shoe. "Jack, what if we weren't meant to wake up? What if the broken pods were supposed to stay broken?" "That doesn't matter now." "I think it does." I turned to her. "Why?" "Because someone tampered with my pod. The seals weren't broken, they were cut." I stared at her. She swallowed hard. "Someone wanted me awake. Someone wanted you awake too." A shiver crawled down my neck. "Who?" Lynn pointed ahead. A door at the far end of the hall glowed faintly. Not with ship lights, something else. Something bluish, pulsing softly like a heartbeat. We stepped closer. The door was labeled, "Biostorage and Research, Authorized Only." Lynn hesitated. "I don't like this." "Me neither," I said. "But the power control room is right behind it." I pressed the door release. The door slid open halfway. Something blocked it. Something big. I pushed through the gap and froze. The room beyond was filled with tanks. Giant vertical cylinders. Some cracked. Some entirely shattered. Others still humming faintly. Thick blue gel sloshed inside them like slow water. But that wasn't the part that made my stomach drop. Inside one of the intact tanks, someone floated. Someone awake. Their face pressed faintly to the glass. Eyes half open. Skin pale from centuries in artificial suspension. They lifted a hand, sluggish but controlled, and traced my name on the inside of the glass. Lynn whispered, "Jack, they know you." I stepped closer. My pulse hammered. The person inside struggled to speak. Bubbles drifted from their mouth. Their voice crackled through an old intercom. "You weren't meant to sleep." Lynn shook her head. "Jack, this is wrong. Let's get the power online and get out." The figure inside tapped the glass again, urgently. They pointed toward the far corner of the room. A console flickered there. I walked toward it, unable to stop myself. Lynn stayed close but tense. A corrupted log flashed onto the screen as I touched it. Cryopop 04 decommission report. Status: ejected. Reason: mass reduction protocol. Survivors selected: 112. Civilians discarded: 3,048. Lynn's breath hitched. 3,000 people. Another log appeared. Secondary file: Jack reads. Override requested. Signatory: Commander L. reads. Relation: spouse. I froze. Lynn whispered, Jack, you had a wife? I don't remember. She tried to protect you, Lynn said softly. She tried to keep you from being thrown out. The screen flickered violently, like something didn't want me reading more. Then the overhead speakers crackled again. Jack, find me. The voice was clearer now. Familiar. Soft. Fragile. Lynn grabbed my arm. That voice. Jack, if that's your wife. Before I could answer, something heavy slammed the door behind us. The light snapped off. Everything went dark except for the faint blue glow of the tanks. Lynn whispered, trembling, Jack, something followed us in. And then we heard it breathing. For a moment, everything was blue. The tanks, the fogged glass, the drifting gel that made the whole room feel like it was underwater. I held my breath, listening. The breathing wasn't human. It scraped, stuttered, like wet lungs learning to work again. Lynn clutched my jacket, trembling. Jack, where is it? She whispered. I don't know. The tanks cast long, trembling shadows. Something moved between them, slow, hunched, dragging its limbs like they weighed too much for a body to carry. Lynn whispered. It got in before the door closed. Stay behind me, I said, my voice low, tight. A long arm slipped between two tanks, thin, stretched, ending in fingers that scraped the floor. Pale, glistening, dripping cryofluid. Jack, Lynn whispered. That looks like a person. It used to. The creature rose a little, lifting its head so the blue glow caught its hollow eyes. It looked right at me. Recognition, agonizing recognition. Reads. My blood ran cold. Jack, Lynn hissed, it knows your name. It took a step toward us, twitching unnaturally. A tag glimmered on its chest. Cryopop 04 Passenger 1127 M. Varies. One of the survivors. One of the chosen. Alive once. Dead now. Then why is it here? I whispered. Its voice, cracked and wet, rasped through the air. Don't leave. I didn't. I shouted. I was abandoned too. Its jaw quivered. Lie all lies. I swallowed. Lynn, the observation deck. That's where this started. She stared at me. Jack, we shouldn't go. I stepped forward. I need the truth. Lynn followed reluctantly. Every step made the floor hiss as residual cryofluid soaked through the metal grating. The tanks loomed like silent witnesses. At the end of the room, a faint glow marked the observation chamber. Through the glass, I saw her, my wife. My heart stopped. She wasn't fully human anymore. Her features were stretched, pale, luminous under the blue gel lighting. But I knew her. I recognized the curve of her cheek, the arch of her brow. Jack, she whispered, voice warped, fragile. I tried. Wait. What happened? I shouted. Why are you like this? She gestured helplessly toward the chamber's inner consoles. The logs blinked, showing corrupted data interlaced with fragments of her messages. Forced to choose. You were gone. Missions failed. Cannot return. Stay away. Survival at a cost. Her eyes met mine. Deep sorrow. Guilt. Something broken beyond repair. Jack, Lynn whispered. She's warning you. Yes, I said. She wants us to stay. If we leave, this thing, whatever's left, goes with us. I swallowed hard, the weight of everything pressing down. Abandonment. Betrayal. Survival. Guilt. We were the remnants of a decision no one should have had to make. The creature behind us wailed, dragging itself closer. It wasn't human. Not anymore. But its plea was unmistakable. Don't repeat the mistake. Don't carry this horror to the rest of humanity. Lynn's hand squeezed mine. Jack, what do we do? I looked at my wife. The creature, The empty pods, the echoes of centuries. Stay, I said finally. My voice shook, but I meant it. We can't survive outside. Not without bringing this with us. We finish it here. Lynn's face went pale, then she nodded. Then we do it together. We stepped into the observation chamber. My wife reached for me. Almost human, almost the woman I remembered. But I knew touching her would make her ours to claim, or ours to lose. The lights flickered. The power hummed violently, reacting to our presence. The creature backed into the tanks, almost protective, almost mournful. I whispered, "I'm sorry." The chamber sealed behind us. The power surged. Gel tanks cracked and hissed, releasing their mutated contents into containment fields. The creature wailed, but couldn't escape. My wife's gaze held mine one final time. Humanity, guilt, love, regret, all compressed into a single heartbeat. Then, silence. Lynn grabbed my arm. "It's done. We're still alive?" I looked around. The ship was quiet. The blue glow dimmed. Everything was still. "Yes," I whispered, "but some things never die." We walked back through the corridors, avoiding the shattered pods, the frozen echoes of those left behind. The abandoned, the forsaken. Outside, the stars glimmered coldly through cracked hull windows. No Arkansas, no rescue, no hope beyond the void. I exhaled, numb. Abandonment. Maybe it was the only way. Lynn swallowed hard. Or maybe it was just the first terrible mistake. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Because we were the last witnesses to a crime no one wanted to remember, and we carried it with us, drifting in endless silence, through a dead ship and a cold, uncaring universe. And some choices can never be undone. I wonder where you're watching from tonight. Maybe aboard a drifting ark somewhere, or on a world long abandoned to silence. Drop your city and state in the comments. I like to know where the darkness still reaches. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe before the horrors you thought were frozen wake up again. Stay safe out there. And if you ever find yourself staring into an empty cryopod or see something moving in the shadows where it shouldn't, don't call out. This has been Paradox Eclipse Theory. Until next time, keep your lights on and your cryopods sealed.